Excuse me. Is your microphone test? weird, I think. Yeah, that one I was saying. How do I explain it? Global? No. Zoom? Yeah, no, I think all the boards are going to be, this is the way that we normally do it today. All right, we can come back to the board of the, without the motion to continue the plan by the next meeting. Second. All in favor?
Should we call it as a stone trench and not a wick drain? And then they just wanted some more clarification on the laydown areas for the construction laydown areas. So I'm gonna talk with the current overseer about that, make sure I show them exactly what they want to do. But we will get that plan set back over to you guys tomorrow, with the updates. There's only like the two updates that they're looking for, and anything that would come from tonight's meeting. And then the three items that we added to the plan from your comment from the last meeting, which was fence, from the landscape plan. Jenny, if you don't mind, if you could go to sheet 6 maybe? Actually, sorry, 5. I apologize. So 5. And so I know at the last meeting, we had shown landscaping along the backside of the parking that faced the one residential lot that abuts this property. And so we have since, we have, uh, we have since added a fence along the parking here. And so we talked to the applicant, and so he would like to do a solid white vinyl fence along here. And so we added that white vinyl fence along the back of the parking here to create a solid barrier for all seasons, because I know it was concerned of the planning board at the last meeting about what happens in the winter time. And so we added that fence there, pushed the landscaping back a little bit, so there's a little bit of space there between the fence and the landscaping, but still provided that fence on the abutter side of the fence like you had requested, so that there is some aesthetic value to the landscaping, not completely seeing the fence there. And so we did add that to the plan. The second item that we added was we did add.
Sorry, before we move on to that.
Sure, go ahead.
Do you have a detail for the fence?
I don't have a detail. It's a standard 6-foot high white.
Can we get one on the plans? If you.
I can see if we have one. Typically, with the white vinyl fence, we usually give like an 8.5 by 11 cut sheet of them.
That's
so
fine.
I can do that too. I can
details,
upload something tomorrow. That's easy enough.
Or even if you just put, it says what?
So we propose white vinyl.
If you could just say privacy 6 feet or however, whatever the details are.
That's fine. We can add more information to that. That's not a big. That's not a tough lift on that one. And then, Jenny, do you mind going to? I believe it's the last. Maybe the last page. Actually, this one right here is good. And so one of the items that came up at the last meeting had to do with the sidewalk connection between the proposed facility for Westborough Tennis and Swim, and then the existing facility up here at 35 Chauncey, and then 30 Oak. And so what we did is we relocated the sidewalk so that we could connect to the Oak Street children's gym here. So that we'll come down, connect the concrete sidewalk with a handicap ramp, a flush area. We show a crosswalk connecting into the existing hatched area that they have now adjacent to their handicap spaces. And then it'll come into their entrance there for the 30 Oak Street site. And then we'll have the crosswalk that goes across Oak Street and then tie back into the proposed sidewalk that we had originally proposed that will go out to their 35 Chauncey Street site. And so we show the the proper connections now to both properties that exist now in the proposed use. And then the last item that we show on this plan, as I know it came up, I believe, from the select board member, was to remove the existing crosswalk that's out on Oak Street now. And so we're showing that now to be removed as part of this also. So those are the 3 changes that we made to the plans as part of the comments that came from this board. Again, we wanted to make sure that they're all shown in there properly. I think this hopefully addresses all your comments from the last meeting, at least regards to the plan. And then the last item I have for you, and I know that was the biggest item I think that came from it, is the last meeting we did have our traffic engineer come and present their traffic findings. And at the last meeting, I know that it was requested that our traffic engineer look at worst case scenario and what traffic counts would have to happen to make the Chauncey Street, and I believe it's Lyman Street intersection, become failing, right? I know at the last meeting, the traffic engineer explained to you, A through D is acceptable, E and F is not acceptable, right? And so he ran those calcs to find out where that, and it's really where Chauncey Street meets, is really that road where it comes into that intersection. That's the only thing that he could run to make it become to a level of service E. And so he gave you those numbers for a weekday and weekend numbers. And those weekend numbers, I think it was like a 70% increase, and I think weekday was like 25% increase. And so he issued a memo to the board. We uploaded that memo just so you can see what kind of numbers would have to happen for just that one road to become a level of service E if you're taking the left-hand turn out of Chauncey. But that intersection in his memo, he outlines it, still operates as a total as an A. to get that intersection to operate as a failing intersection, we're talking ridiculous amount of traffic that would have to happen on the other main street over there. So, but he got it to a point that you would ask for, that to get to a level service E. And like I said, for the weekend, it was like a 71% increase. I have so 71% increase for the weekend. And for the weekday, it was a 22% increase for that intersection to become a, level service E. And, we're talking very large amounts of traffic out there. So, but he wanted to provide that information. I know that was the board's wish, is for him to run those calculations. So he did run those calculations for you, just to see the amount of traffic that would have to be added to that intersection to create that intersection to be at the worst case. This intersection here would have to, he'd have to increase the traffic even more here. So that was the intersection that would have the quickest level of service E by any increase in traffic. All the rest of the intersections, you'd have to increase it by over 100%, right? So it's, at that point, it's not realistic.
Did you see the letter from the,
I did, and so that's what I was going to address next. I
Okay.
just want to make sure that you guys are...
did everyone see that letter that came in from the police department?
I did, and so Jenny and I went back and forth with emails today regarding that, because I wanted to make sure that I was clear on what they're looking for. And so currently, at the crosswalk here, but Chauncey, at 35 Chauncey, there are two flashing signals, right, for the crosswalk. And so the two things that what the police department was looking for was that the new crosswalk here is to put those flashing signals here also. And then I believe further up the street, they're looking for one speed sign. And so the applicant is amenable to that. I know there was, at least in the report, I believe there were some improvements that were being requested for in the traffic report for this sidewalk, but this is above and beyond what even the traffic engineer had proposed. And so, but the applicant is amenable to those requests by the police chief. So, and so they have no issue putting those out there.
That's good. One other thing that you may not be able to answer this question, but I became aware, or someone, I guess, who goes to the club said to me that the small building is not used by children, but is used as an offshoot by exercise. I mean, physical gym, so that and I think my concern, or some discussion we had originally, was that might be used as a daycare center, but my understanding, it is not used by children in that way.
The kids club, I believe, is also in that building.
It is
For UG, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's exercise, and there's like a massage and stuff, and then there's the kids club. It's all in the same building.
Okay, so it just, as I said, there was, at least on my part, some concern about the number of children that might be using that building. I gather that there are not that many that use it, so that, as I said, that was, as I said, my concern about people walking through the parking lot and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I answered that question on that basis.
Okay. Yeah, and that's where, like I said, I had a long conversation with the applicant today about the sidewalk and the off-site improvements, and that's why he was, I guess that's where he was like, we're amenable to those improvements, knowing that it's only going to help his facilities also. But, and so at this point, like I said, there's only a couple small changes that we have to make to the plan. One of them has to do with just changing the wording of the stone trench that we show there, to change it how we had labeled it to what they want to see it as, a little more comfortable phrasing of it. So there's no confusion. And then it was just a matter of where the construction laydown pad was going to be. Really no major change to a plan at this point. I mean, our hope was that at the meeting next week that we could come to a vote by the board and move forward this project after next week's meeting, knowing that we need to make those small changes before then, so that the correct date of the plan can be referenced on the planning board's decision. But also, I know the Conservation Commission has a meeting next Tuesday also, and that was our intent, is to go in front of the Conservation Commission for them to close it and issue an order of conditions at their next meeting.
All right, and you'll add about the fence, the requirement,
What's that again?
the request to...
Yeah, we can add that the fence is an easy, that's an easy lift.
Right.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to issue those updated plans tomorrow.
Are there any other things that that the board members are aware of that they would like added to this particular plan, or questions they may have at this time? John?
With the traffic study, you said the increase of 20% and 70%. Can you just dive more into,
Sure.
how many trips that equates to?
So if we were to look at, and I don't have the original report with me, but I believe the traffic counts were coming back at we were at 3,000 trips. And I know when I was over I want to say it was 3,600 for the weekday, and it was still over 3,000 for the weekend. But you're talking 22%, it's 700 trips, almost 800 trips a day, right? More traffic for a weekday. And then for the weekend, it was almost 2,000 more trips, right? He was close to almost doubling the trips to really make that intersection.
And then how many trips is the expansion supposed to generate?
I don't have that number. Do you have the initial report? I
I'm
apologize.
just trying to
Was it-
quantify it, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it was like 10 an hour.
'Cause you hear 70%, but I think if we can,
Well, 77, yeah, so I guess the big question, I know there was a lot of conversation last time about, well, everybody couldn't believe that there was only a 4% growth from a February to the peak time of year, right? And I think that was a lot of discussion because we had them do it on a Saturday. Typically, they don't do Saturday counts, but because we knew it was the hockey rink and it was still hockey peak season, we wanted to look at it this time of year for the hockey rink. But there was a question about, is February's increase at 4% realistic? And so that's why he did a deep dive into looking at, all right, what kind of increase would really cause an issue out here? 22% is for his report was it's a significant increase. But yeah, we're looking at,
It's on page
those are
19.
the existing counts, right? So that's the weekend. So like I said, 3,000 for the Saturday. Actually, if you, right there, I think, right? If you go up
Yeah,
here.
right there.
Trips generator, right? So this is where the net for daily new vehicles, right, was 424, taking into account of the expansion, right? So really we're looking at an additional 12,000 square feet of net increase in health and fitness club, because there's an existing 14,000 square foot club there now, or it's a new 26,000 square foot club. And so, but if you look at, and then he included additional tennis courts, he was looking at a 424 for the day. That's part of this project.
That's in and out.
That's an increase of 424. That's already been included in the report, not even touching this.
Yeah.
And then the 22% was on top of that.
On top of the 420.
Correct.
Okay.
Can
Yeah,
you,
so,
sorry,
go ahead, yeah.
No, it's not on traffic.
Christina, did you have a question?
I had a separate question, not on traffic.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, so that additional is on top of the 424.
Yeah, and so
like
when
another, you're saying like another 750 on top of.
and on top of this product, correct. And so that's why when he did this and we had the conversation afterwards, and he even knew it when we were talking that night, because he looked enough at the numbers to feel comfortable with this project. He knew that when he was going to have to get to a level of service E, he knew that number was going to have to be a large figure to get to that number, to start making that intersection have a delay enough that even, it was just really that left-hand turn out of Chauncey that was really causing the level of service E. But if you look at the charts that he has in the back, the appendices, you can see where he shows you left-hand turns, right-hand turns off of Chauncey, and the left-hand turn off, and the right-hand turns off of the main street coming into Chauncey. All those other intersections, all those other turns operate at a acceptable level. It's really the left-hand turn operates at a level E, level E. But the entire intersection still operates as an average of an A. And so even that, he's like, it still wouldn't trigger a signalized intersection. It wouldn't trigger any really major improvements at that intersection, even with that additional traffic, because it wouldn't trigger a warrant to put a signal out there or blinking light, say, or anything like that. So you're still a decent amount of way before you get to the traffic that would warrant improvements to that intersection of substance.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just had a clarifying question. So the new building, so the fitness center is moving, right,
Yes,
across the
yes.
street?
Yep.
And then there will be two, whether it was tennis or pickleball courts?
Yes.
That will be in the space of the existing fitness center?
So that's what they're telling us, is the space
Okay.
that they have there would only fit the two tennis courts. yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
I would just say, I guess just for additional context on going across the street, most of the across the street occurrences on foot happen because it's like parents going to the fitness center. So I think this would actually reduce the crossings because you'd have the fitness center on the same side. Yeah, as the kids. And if you have two courts, that's like 8 people. And frankly, a lot of traffic in that area right now is because none of the lots are big enough. So it's people trying to park
Right.
in multiple lots.
And I will say that the applicant did push back to us about that connection to Chauncey Street and this site.
Yeah.
They were more amenable to the kids club part of it and that part where they would see some crossover between those two uses.
Yep.
But like you said, trying to get back and forth to tennis, they said a lot of people will throw their equipment into the car if they're going to come use the fitness club and
Yes.
drive over, right? So just from their experience already and what they have out there, so.
Yep.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Caroline, did you have any questions?
No other questions?
Clarification, John?
Questions?
This is still a public hearing. Do we have anyone from the audience who'd like to speak about this matter? If you could introduce yourself and try to keep your remarks to under 2 minutes.
This works?
I hope so.
If
Yes.
the green light's on.
Yeah. Okay, so Ruth Cimarelli, 2 Woodman Ave. A couple concerns or is a kind of confused about the landscaping, but there's a stone wall going along that field, okay, along the road.
The one on the road.
Are they going to leave the stone wall there, or are they going to destroy it? What is their plans for that?
Yeah. Jenny, do you mind going to sheet 3, I believe it, right, yeah, actually, sorry, sheet 4. I apologize. So,
It looks pretty close to the street. So
yeah, so the stone wall is along the property line here, and so there will be a portion of the stone wall that have to be removed for the entrance there.
yeah,
And then we will disturb a little of the stone wall in here to get the utility connection for the sewer, and then the water. But I think the stone wall kind of dies out as we get further down the property.
towards the,
The other side?
And then anything up toward your property is going to remain.
okay.
We're not looking to touch any of that. So our limited disturbance,
And
We're trying to
it'll
follow
probably-
along the back of the
We're
pavement.
going to have a sidewalk now where
This-
that
the sidewalk would be,
higher stone wall is. It has the old lilac bush and all that stuff. And that has a higher level stone wall. And that's where it looks like you'd have to do something like more of a step going on that side. Do you understand what I mean?
if
Right along
down in the
there?
corner here,
Yeah,
there is a berm that runs along the property line here that, yes, some of that berm would have to be taken out of there, yes. Yeah,
so
so some
that's
of
going
the,
to get leveled?
that would get leveled, yes, yes.
So is it going to get leveled to the same degree as what you're calling the little, we called it the daycare, but I know you
Yeah,
guys
the
call it-
kids club, yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be leveled to the ground?
No, there'll still be some grade difference in between the two sites.
Because that's quite a
Yes,
difference.
yes, there is, yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so we're not going to touch,
Because that also would have something to do with the water over there, because that has that.
as we get further down, yes, there is a swale that
pond,
runs,
right?
yeah, there is a swale,
Yeah.
and yeah,
And
that's, yeah.
basically, you've got it almost like right where that line is.
So so this is our crosswalk that would happen. There is a catch basin over here that is tied in, and that's why we showed it this way. We actually looked at kind of changing the sidewalk down, but we couldn't get it to work with the drainage patterns out there. So that's kind of why we left the sidewalk end where it did, and then hatched that crosswalk the way we did, because we couldn't get the drainage to work out.
Yeah, so right
properly.
at that area there. But
So this is fairly flat here. It's this corner, yeah, that there is some
Yeah.
change in the grade there, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
quite-
and so that will be flattened out to
Yeah,
get the sidewalk to
'cause it
come through,
comes
yes.
right in there.
Yep.
And I know that over the years, that field, well, we know it because we've been there for
Yeah, yeah.
70 years.
Yep.
The water issue over there, but that's, what are
Yeah,
you talking about?
there is a wetland off the property, along the property line there,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, and so that's why we
But
filed
there's
the
not going to
conservation
be,
commission for.
like, say like over at Boston Lawnmower?
Yep,
In the front of it?
Yes.
You've got that drainage thing, are you going to do the same in here?
in the back,
Yeah,
in the back of the parking lot, in here, yes. Any of the drainage in the front is going to be underground. We have an underground system in the front of the site.
Do you have another question? Ma'am?
Well, I guess I can stop. I was just wanting to know about the land.
Right.
What he's going to do with the landscape and how it's going to affect us.
And we do show some landscaping on the front of the site too. As much as we can in the front here, obviously avoiding the utility connection with the sewer connection here. So we have to show some shrubs over the sewer connection instead of trees in that
But
location.
basically, all the other part is going to be field.
All the rest of it, that's field over here, yes, adjacent to yours is still going to be field, correct, yes. Yes, yep.
I mean, I think that actually, if and when this is approved as a plan, maybe you could arrange to meet with the next door neighbor, this lady and her
We can let you know
brother
when I know we're supposed to, yeah. So
meet together and,
the building location is now staked out on the site, so I don't know if you saw the 4 wooden stakes out in the fields,
Not,
but I know we were out there
Not-
last week. We were out there last Wednesday, yeah.
I didn't see it.
Okay, so the building, at least the 4 corners of the building, but there are 4 stakes now out there. And so
Oh,
the
okay,
grass.
That's what that was?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So that's
I wasn't
where
sure
the
if you
building
were-
location is, yes, yeah.
Doing something.
but if perhaps, when they begin, that you could sit down with the supervisor, whoever it is that's
Yes.
running the project, and talk
Plus
to
the-
them
plus
about
the owner.
the landscaping and
Yeah, and
things
you-
that you're
yeah.
concerned
I've got his.
about.
Here, but yes, we can set something
I've
up.
got his
Yep.
Okay,
name and number.
thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to talk, have any comments on this project? If not, could I have a motion to continue this until our next meeting, which is the 14th of April?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Thank you.
Oh, I need to sign a form. I sent you the Oak Street one. Do you need one for this? Good, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We'll see you on the 14th then.
Next week.
Okay. All right, our next matter is, we're really, the rest of the meeting is administrative matters, and the first one is a chair and vice person appointments for the coming year. Do we have any nominations for that?
Yeah, I would like to nominate Hazel as chair and John as vice chair. John Gelsich, I should say.
Oh, yeah, not yourself? I would second
Only
that,
one
but I'm not
Hazel
gonna
on
second it
the
with
board.
myself.
All right, are there any other nominations? If not, we're ready to vote. I appreciate the nomination, and I'd be delighted to serve for another year.
Thank you.
I hope John will be pleased to serve for another
Yes.
year also.
I would, thank you.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. All right, next, we're going to do a review of the draft surplus land regulations for EOHLC. I'm going to turn this over to Jenny. My understanding, there is one piece of property in town which would meet the requirements on this, and it's at the corner of Samuel Fuller Road, or whatever the name of that. I think that's correct. Right across the street from the
Solomon
dog
Carter
park.
Fuller.
Solomon, thank you. Sir. Right across the street from the dog park. There is a piece of property there which I understand someone has put a bid in on or is going to.
Yes, they already own the property.
Oh, it's, okay.
Yeah,
owns
it
the
already has
property.
gone out to,
Is that the state land?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the one with the cars on it? The parking area?
no,
It's north of that, or south of that?
south of that. I can hold up on the map and show you. It's this property right here.
It backs up to the, what used to be the girls' decamp.
Yes, it's still there, and then it's
Still
across
there.
from the dog park. So
And
the dog
it's-
park is about here.
Right.
And then, and so it's across from there. And
And
so the
it's-
state used to own this property, and it went up for auction, and it was won by someone. And then this property on the corner is still owned by the state at 200 Lyman.
But that piece wouldn't meet the qualifications, would it, the way they're set?
Not unless the state decided to auction it.
Would it meet the qualifications for this particular section of the code? I mean,
Potentially, it's up to the state. So these regulations are,
but what about the 4, in other words, there are 4 units that have to go on it. How big, I don't know how big either of those pieces are. I think the bigger one is about 4 acres, isn't it?
It's not 4 units, right? It's 4 units per acre.
correct, so,
Density
yeah.
rather than a total.
Okay.
The draft regulations that EOHLC has put together would require municipalities to allow multifamily housing on these parcels that that have this designation. And the requirements essentially are a minimum of 4 units per acre, but there's no maximum. And then any dimensional controls, the town can't require unreasonable dimensional controls. So there's no maximum height, the setbacks, can be flexible, things like that.
Is there a minimum? I mean, for example, if you had a half acre,
Mhm.
would it then, you'd have to at least 2 units? I mean, does it go down? I know it.
Not that I know of, no.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about it as 4 units per acre, but my question also was that if you had a smaller piece,
Yeah, so that's just how they do the calculation, which is in these regulations. So I had put together, based on my review, some preliminary questions or concerns that I think the board should be aware of. So when DCAM conveys this surplus state land for housing purposes, the municipality must allow for the residential development as of right, so no special permit, no discretionary review. The municipality would only have the restriction that they can't reduce effective density below 4 dwelling units per acre. They may still regulate the bulk and height of structures, lot area, setbacks, but it must be reasonable requirements, essentially in kind with neighboring properties, other developments. Site plan review can be allowed, but again, it's a non-discretionary review. And you may not impose any parking requirements, affordable housing requirements, unless DCAM put something into the agreement when they sold the site. And then local conservation restrictions may not apply. You can't put restrictions on specific types of residential development, so you wouldn't be able to say only single-family homes, for example. And then the density calculation, there's no maximum. It's a minimum of 4 units per acre, and the municipality cannot cap that. So just the regulations are out for comment from municipalities, and comments are due April 13th. So I think it would be appropriate for the board to submit any comments you may have. These are what I sent the board were just my preliminary thoughts. I'm happy to add anything else, of course. My first concern was the affordable housing. Given that we can't require affordable units, I think that might be an issue and worth flagging. I think that we should at least be allowed to have a minimum percentage. So maybe not the full 20% that Westborough requires under our inclusionary zoning, but maybe a 10%, and that, or looking at the AMI, potentially saying 80% AMI instead of how we have it more flexible in our zoning. Do you want me to go through each one and we'll talk about them, or all of them at once?
Yeah, I guess the first question there was, was there a height restriction?
No.
I mean, that's one that would really concern me.
So it's again, the reasonable regulations. So you could say, because the mixed-use district is there, you could say we want similar to those requirements, or similar to Pulte, which was,
Well, that's what I don't want.
right.
I mean,
When
I'm
that small
I'm
piece there,
thinking
yeah.
about where that is, and,
Right.
what's around it and so forth, and I'd hate to see, I'd like to see some constraints on the building in that particular spot.
I did
I don't want to
comment.
see a 6-story apartment building there.
6-story apartment building might actually be the same height as the Pulte buildings.
That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah. No, I'm just thinking about the aesthetics on that particular spot and, where it is. I mean, I'd like us to at least have some control over something like that.
I think you have to keep in mind too, though, it's not just that area. I mean, that is one example that we have, but there could potentially be more at one point, and that's what
Exactly.
these regulations would cover.
Yeah.
So I think it's really more about asking for better parameters, so you know what you're deciding on. So
I mean, I
maybe
thought
not with
the
the
things you
density, but
raised-
establishing those reasonable parameters so that municipalities could still retain the ability to establish that ceiling on the density, but tie it to other objective factors.
I mean, I thought what you raised were excellent. Looking at, the kinds of things that I think are important to us. I mean, obviously, affordable housing is one. Do you know, out of curiosity, do you have any idea how many pieces of property this might affect in our town?
I don't. I could look at how many areas are owned, through the state right now.
I mean, I think that was my question as much as anything else is, based on the properties that are owned and the areas they're in, whether there are any other specific things that we should be looking at. And this is due, you said the 17th?
The 13th.
13th, the day before our next meeting.
I mean, you all could send me individual comments and I can include them if you want to give me the authority to put something together.
Yeah, that's fine as far as I'm concerned. Is there any chance that you could just take a quick look and see how many parcels there are that are owned that might qualify for this? I mean, if it's a quarter acre, then I don't think we really need to worry about that much. I'm more concerned about whether there are any larger pieces and what else we might think about because of where those particular places, pieces are.
I can find that.
When you're done, I have
I'm done.
comments. Okay. One of my concerns is a lack of impact fees or payments from the state. They control this land. They're basically putting restrictions or lack of restrictions on the land and then not helping the towns address that,
Infrastructure.
right?
Yeah.
MBTA communities, similar thing, but the towns could pick where the land was. And you couldn't zone it. You couldn't zone state-owned land, right? So this wouldn't have been included. Any of these properties would not have been included. The 40R, 40Y zoning, both of those school children payments come with it. So there's really it's all stick, no carrot with this. And so that's my concern is if you have a bunch of properties or a town with a bunch of properties and the state then gives them off, that town could find itself in a hole, especially with Westborough and the sewer issue. If we have a larger parcel that gets developed and now we have to address that that we couldn't have addressed it through any other means because it was state-owned land and couldn't zone for anything. That's a concern of mine. But then the question I have is, if this land was already sold, is it even eligible?
Yes, so because they had not established the regulations when the property was purchased, but my understanding of that program was that the wording had it as subject to regulations that would be created by EOHLC.
Oh, so they had in mind that something like this was going to come up and put it into the
Correct.
purchase and sale?
This happened under the Affordable Homes Act in 24? So that was part of it, but then it was subject to, regulations EOHLC would have to create.
Okay. So that's a concern, I guess. But yeah, I think the impacts on the infrastructure for municipalities when we really can't plan for this. I mean, this could come out of nowhere, right? The state sells some land, comes out of nowhere, and we're not prepared.
What about this piece? We're not prepared for this. I mean, this is a whole new thing, and the regulations now are new to us, so consequently, we couldn't be prepared for this.
Right.
And this is their first draft of regulations that have been sent out. I would anticipate, future drafts and meetings at the state level.
Yeah, but other than that, I'm comfortable with authorizing Jenny to send a letter on the board's behalf.
Yeah. Do you want a motion on that, Jenny?
Yes.
Okay, could I have a motion authorizing?
I move that the planning board authorize the planning director to draft and submit a letter of comments related to the draft surplus regulations from EOHLC on behalf of the planning board, including the comments in Jenny's memo and discussed tonight.
Second.
Any more comments from the board? All in favor? Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate the draft that you did on this, because I thought those were great ideas, and I'm glad we got a chance to discuss this, to come up with any other questions that we might have. Yeah. All right, town meeting debrief, success.
That's on the downtown zoning, yes.
Okay.
Great job.
So I think a discussion that we can add to a future agenda item is, what's next for zoning. There's obviously many priorities that the planning board has said that they want to look at. I have a whole list on my whiteboard in my office of things from the master plan and then just mentions. So we should really talk about as a board and department what you want to focus on. Is there something that, besides the sign bylaw, which I know about for October, anything else that we should be looking at?
Are there anything, has the zoning committee come up with anything?
We talked a little about a few things. I was just going to add, I was disappointed with the like what transpired with Ferris's proposal for research drive there. I think that was a great opportunity. I think it got confusing, I think, for people at town meeting, because I think they felt like they were voting on a project, which they weren't. But I think as a board, we should push to see a study for that entire corridor. I think it would be important, because I think Ferris made a lot of good points that the budget continues to increase in town. We need to find ways to bring in more tax revenue, and to be fearful of urban sprawl or things along those lines it's just not accurate. So I think we need to look at it with analytics rather than, negative propaganda.
Yeah,
So.
or emotion, yeah.
Yep.
I agree. I don't think it was clear what the ask was, right? And it did feel like a project. And well, I think the intent of some of his examples was to give like comfort and reassurance. I think it just sounded like selling, right? So, but yes, I agree. It is, and it is adjacent to the highway business district anyway on Route 9. So, and it's like empty.
Yeah.
So I think more than anything, yeah.
The issue with town meeting turning the zoning discussion into a discussion about the project itself is something that frustrates me, and it's happened before. It happened 2 years ago with the pump station on
Yeah.
Morse Lane,
Yeah,
because we were just trying to set the dimensions, and then it became
yeah,
an argument about whether this pump station and the chemicals that are involved in it are allowed. And I think that's something that maybe we should reach out to the town moderator and talk to, because he's the one that should be keeping the discussion within the four corners. And if we're talking about the merits of a project that's not even proposed versus the merits of the zoning that's being proposed, that's something that I think throws the discussion at town meeting off. And to kind of rein that discussion in to really focus on what we're actually discussing would be beneficial to, I think, all parties.
yeah.
And I think the timing's right, too. The former BJ's site is currently being marketed for sale. And if we don't do anything about the zoning and doing a corridor study, it will likely just be large, high-bay distribution warehouses, which, you know what, if that's what the town wants to see, then that's what's gonna happen. Or we can get in front of it and try to rezone it, as we discussed in town meeting. So, you know, I just put that out there.
One of,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead, Hazel.
go ahead, I'm fine.
This is not necessarily for town meeting, but something I do think we should look at again this year is the matrix for like the environmental, like the checklist for give and take of, what is that, what do we call that? Like the rubric for the trade-offs.
The highway,
Yeah, and
highway business?
yes,
Oh,
for
okay, sustainable.
from sustainability aspect, yeah, and like in terms of percentage of open space, and
Yeah,
I think we need to
absolutely.
revisit that.
Yep, our sustainability coordinator actually had some thoughts about that now that we've gone through a project.
Yeah.
You know, our first project that went through that, maybe we should take a look at that again.
Great.
I would say one thing that, Jenny, I know we talked about as a committee, zoning review committee, has been the industrial zones. I think we have 4, maybe 5.
4.
4.
Yeah, 2 industrial and 2 overlay.
Yeah, so I think we, you know, not to create too much of a heavy lift, we can prioritize these, but I think going forward, we should probably try to condense that and make it easier to understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, those are all very good suggestions, and I think one of the things I really appreciate is Jenny's knowledge on zoning, which has been a big help in looking at all these overlays and various things and seeing how there are ways that this can be made more develop-friendly, I guess is what I look at it as. We would look at the possibilities in this town and what could be done and what we'd like to see done in the planning aspect.
Well, just to touch upon that, I don't think every town has a town planner that has as much experience in zoning as you do.
No,
Kind of
not
like,
usually.
So going back to the whole Ferris thing, where there was this issue about spot zoning, I think you were first to say it's not spot zoning, and this is why, unfortunately, some folks had to double check you on that with town council, and it happens, but it's safe to say you know
You were
your
right.
stuff. So you were right, and we thank you for that.
Something that I brought up in some of the conversations with around the Ferris development was we do have a number of large unit apartment complexes that are they're all going to be built around the same time. And I do think as a general infrastructure, yes, we know that from a sewer capacity, that's fine. Yes, from a school capacity, that's fine. But just from a volume of traffic and thinking about like construction traffic in so many parts of the town, I guess I wonder what we can do as a board to kind of be planful in such a way so that we're being mindful of the growing capacity of the town. And I don't know what that answer is, but you know,
Well, I think it's to look at it in a way that we're not overloading the town with new development
right,
all at once, but understanding that the budget continues to increase, right?
100%.
So we can phase these projects in over the years, right? I think, look at Post Road, for example. They're not
Yes.
going to build all those units at once.
Right.
They'll go with phase one, and then phase two.
Yep.
So I think anything in the future, I think as a board, we have to look at that and kind of say, okay, we can't all of a sudden bring in
Another.
1,000 units all at the
Yes.
same time. Let's kind of look and phase it. It's no different than a lot of the other communities do.
But I think as a board, technically, we can't say no, right, if it's zoned for it. So I guess that's what I'm getting at. And I do think what you're talking about with relooking at, do we extend the highway business? Do we, like, what else do we do to kind of encourage development in a fruitful way in the town? But that's a real concern, I guess, that I have.
And I
yeah.
think, that's the kind of thing where you have to really look at the economic development coordinator and kind of look ahead and say, all right, we have X number of properties available that could be developed.
Yeah.
How do we want to see them developed?
Right.
And how can we pursue that instead of having somebody come in and give us a project? I'd like to see us go out
Yeah.
and say, okay, this is the kind of project we are looking for in this town to develop this particular area, and see what we can find. So, you kind of put the shoe in
Right.
on the other foot.
Proactive versus reactive.
Exactly,
Right.
yeah. And that's what I'd like to see more of. Because I think that as a planner, it's very important to be doing, is to be looking ahead and seeing. And I think, particularly in the economic climate that we're living in at the moment, we need to be aware of this, and we need to look ahead and see what possibilities that we have in this particular town, particularly to grow our tax base, because otherwise we're going to lose people in this community because they can't afford to live here.
And I think the study that John was talking about will also help with some of those questions, because it's looking at the land use, the existing market conditions, but then doing a projection out 20, 30 years, demands on transportation, demands on our infrastructure. So it's giving you, as a planning board, a holistic look so that maybe you don't zone all of that area, the same zoning all at once.
Right.
You zone part of it and concentrate on the areas that you would prioritize. So that's one way to also look at that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone, for your comments on that. We will move forward accordingly. The next matter on our agenda is there was a request from a town citizen to have an open forum, such as, for example, the Board of Selectmen has. Just for information sake, under Massachusetts general laws, the planning board acts as the permit granting authority as specified in the town of Westborough. Each permit, so in other words, we are responsible for special permits, site plans, and zoning changes are the main things that we're responsible for. All of those require an open hearing when they come before our board. Based on that and the fact that our planner has made herself fully available, as has our assistant planner, and John has been kind enough to hold office hours at the library for people who are interested in finding out the planning board. I really feel that there's no need for any open hearing such as the Board of Select has. And I just wanted the board's comments on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all pretty open and easy to connect to. I mean, I'm doing office hours somewhat regularly. I would encourage the other board members to do the same. Jenny and Kristen are out at farmers markets and around town, and we've gotten plenty of comments from residents through emails. I don't really think there's been any residents that have come to this meeting saying, hey, wanted to make a comment. Why isn't there a space for me to make a comment? If that was happening, then yeah, I'd say of course, but I don't think there's any need to do that right now.
Excuse me, this is not an open hearing. This is a discussion just among the board. John, do you have any comments on this?
I'm not entirely against it, to be honest with you.
Same.
I'm not against a public forum. I just don't see a need for one right now.
I guess I'm not familiar with how select board handles it, so is it more we just get some, like a timed feedback? And
It's basically just a unstructured, no topic time where people can come up and make comments. The board cannot respond. The board cannot discuss. You have to put it on an agenda at a later time because it's not something that was advertised. So you're basically just there to hear what residents have to say, which is the same as an email, which is the same as meeting Jenny, the same as coming into office hours.
I mean, I would think.
Again, I'm not opposed to it. I just don't see the benefit of having that at this point. We don't have a need. There's plenty of other options to reach out to us.
Go ahead, Hazel, sorry.
No, I think the difference between us and the Board of Selectmen is the fact that we have a particular authority that we've been given on things that we are supposed to be looking at. And therefore, all of those things we have an open hearing on, so that any other matters really are not in our province generally. And I think that's the thing that concerns me. I mean, not concerns me, but just looking at what we as a planning board are supposed to be doing, which is different really from the Board of Select. Though we're both elected boards, the Board of Select has a wider authority to handle and look at anything essentially. But we are more specific as to what it is that we are supposed to be doing.
I get that. And I would say it's probably more beneficial if there was an ability to have a discussion, perhaps a back and forth. So, I mean, would it be possible if someone did have something they wanted to send to us, we could put it on an agenda?
Can we do that now?
No,
Well,
I know, I'm just
no.
saying.
I mean, I
But
think.
we don't.
What are you talking about?
We do, but if someone has a question or wants a dialogue around something that doesn't have isn't going through the permitting process, right? Or isn't something currently on the agenda, then it isn't taken up. So if someone brought up industrial zoning, right, and we don't have it on the agenda, there's not really, if we don't have an open item.
I mean, I think though, if it's something within our province, then they could always go to Jenny and say, would you put this on the agenda? If it is within the kind of
Sure.
things that we deal with.
Yeah.
That certainly could be done at any time.
And so if I can respond
Yeah.
to that?
Yeah.
So if someone emailed me and said, I want to request this as an agenda item in front of the planning board, I would send it to the planning board and ask, through the chair, if she wants it to be an agenda item. So that is possible for most topics. Maybe that's not clear, and we can establish parameters on the website to make it clear that if you want to request the planning board reviews something, we can review it to consider putting on the agenda, but that is the role of the chair to establish the agenda and decide what goes on there.
Sorry, can I just add on to that,
go
Chris?
ahead.
So, and also what we've done is, instead of bringing something to the entire board that's not completely fleshed out or maybe even really understood by everyone, we have meetings with Jenny and a board member. I've done plenty of those meetings with residents. I think you've done meetings with those residents.
Yeah.
So, like, I think that's the first step. Is if somebody says, "Hey, I want to talk about industrial zoning." Okay, great. Let's meet, talk about it, and then if there's something we want to bring to the board to actually take action, that's fine. Otherwise, there's no point in bringing that whole conversation to the board just to get off the ground.
My perspective is from while there are maybe many means that we're saying, oh, someone can email me or someone can do this, I do think it's less obvious, and in the spirit of transparency and wanting to continually hear from the rest of our the people in the town, I think having some sort of cadence of an open forum, we could cap the time. We could say, if you email ahead, then we can have a discussion. If you don't, then maybe we can pick it up elsewhere, but maybe that's also a time to say like, oh, you want to talk more about industrial zoning? Let's set up a meeting with John and Jenny and you can talk about it. I think there's value. I think there's value in trying it. I do.
My thing, I just want to be able to have a discussion.
Yes. So maybe as part of it, then maybe you have to submit ahead, right? I mean, and then we can decide. I just think that there's value in having a more intentional option to talk about something that isn't like an open agenda item.
I tend to agree. Just the fact that we keep asking, we want people to get more involved, right?
My only concern is I want to make sure that it is something that we should be discussing.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that's-
Absolutely.
I think that's my concern
Yep.
as much as anything else, is that it needs to stay within the kinds of things that
Yes.
is appropriate for the planning board to be dealing with. Therefore, I think probably if someone wishes to do this, if they make a request to Jenny, and, I guess John and I and Jenny meet before the agenda every month. And if it would be all right, we would then make a decision whether this was an appropriate item to put on the agenda.
To make a
discuss.
forum the appropriate item, or to make the topic that somebody reached out about? But that's not a forum then.
No.
That's somebody reaching out to get, that's exactly what I was saying, is somebody reached out ahead of
But then
time.
to put it on the agenda.
But that's not a forum, that's just adding it as an agenda item.
But then if it's,
You could leave it open as a,
Start with, what if we start with that and see how many people participate?
Start with what?
With what you suggested,
That's what we currently do.
well, it doesn't,
Maybe
we
advertising
don't,
it.
yeah.
decision as to whether we could put it, I mean.
Yes,
you
if
can put
somebody
it
reaches,
on
if somebody
as-
reaches out to Jenny and says, I want to talk about this,
Yeah.
yes, she sends it to
then-
you,
Yeah, and we talk, we
And-
just make a decision,
right?
yeah.
So that's currently
as
how
to
we
whether
operate.
that's appropriate.
Yes.
But I know that's how we currently operate. I think we need to announce that's how we operate, so people.
And
Okay.
intentionally bring additional items in.
Yeah, all right.
Right.
Yeah, just, I mean, I think it's worth trying.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's also a helpful education piece. Oh, that's something that the zoning board would,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I think that's another component
My
of it.
concern is if somebody comes in and talks about something that's not jurisdiction of the planning board, you cannot discuss it with them.
But Jenny
You have
can,
to- You have to let them say it.
sure.
So they could talk about taxes that we have nothing to do with, and we have to talk about, and if we don't respond, people get pissed off because we don't
For
respond.
an open forum.
For an open forum.
Right.
It sounds like, if I can just kind of summarize what everybody has said here. Right now, we do have a process that might not be visible as visible as it should be, where someone can email me or call me or come in and talk to me and say, I want this item as added to the agenda. I send it to Hazel and John, and they consider it as the chair and vice chair when we meet to add to the agenda. I can, if the board wants me to, I can establish like a written procedure that we can announce through the website and all of that, and say that this is the process. And then we'll see how that goes. If it goes well, then you can talk about this again and consider an open forum, which is different than that procedure.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
That's,
and I think
that was my
that's-
summary. I'm
that's
doing
what I
whatever
was
you're
saying.
telling me to do, but
Nice.
that's my
AI
summary.
Jenny, AI Jenny there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, that's.
I had the same thought, actually. Yeah.
That makes, that makes perfect sense as far as that goes. And if we find there are a number of people that need something discussed, I mean, I think maybe we could consider doing it, an information meeting, essentially. I
Sure.
mean, if there are a number of items, there's no reason why we could not have an extra meeting, or as part of our meeting, do that, which would be another possibility.
Yeah, so to that point, in Hopkinton, what we did for one of the zoning advisory committees was had an annual public forum. You just have one meeting where this is where you encourage people to come in, because the point of that group was to formulate zoning to then bring to town meeting, right? So it was kind of like the R&D of the planning board. If we could do something like that, that would be great to solicit public, even
idea,
if we did
yeah.
it once a quarter, just to have a meeting of like, hey, this is the time to bring your ideas, bring your stuff. But having it every meeting, I think is,
I don't think
I mean,
that-
if you want to, we can. I just don't think it's going to be as beneficial as people think it is.
I mean, it could easily be done. For example, you could hold once a quarter, you could have a meeting that started at 6, and between 6 and 6:30,
Not a bad idea.
you could do something like that.
Yeah.
And instead of, I don't think we need to, all meet another night, but we could do it that way.
Yeah.
And if people wanted to come, and, if there were enough requests for things that people would like to discuss, then we could hold that as an early half an hour to do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that idea.
And
Okay.
maybe fill the time if there's not people coming to speak. Fill
Exactly.
the time with some planning 101 type
Right.
stuff.
So do you want me to then look at the calendar and see what dates, once a quarter, to hold a meeting where,
Let's see if the demand's there first.
Okay.
Yeah, and then,
Okay.
and then actually, and see what, if it's just once a quarter, let's see which meetings, I mean, if we have a meeting that's got a small agenda, obviously it'd be easier to put it on
Yeah.
at that particular time. So let's, wait and see how many people and how many requests we get.
Yeah, I mean, this is possibly a good time because this is the beginning of the quarter.
Right,
So if we wanted, I mean, July might be tough because it'll be in the middle of the summer, but if we wanted to go into September and set something up for September.
right. And we can get a notice out on this and announce it at, the next meeting that we have, that there will be a meeting.
So we're talking about two different
Maybe
things,
do-
right?
maybe
So,
do-
Yes, we are.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying
Because how do
to
we get-
summarize it up here.
I think we just start off by bringing the procedure out so people can understand. Jenny, and also when people need to submit requests to get onto the agenda
Yeah,
by,
that's true.
Mhm.
because, right, you gotta run it
Yeah, we-
by.
posting
You both.
requirements.
Like Friday at noon at the very latest, right?
We
That's when you
just-
have to post the agenda.
Just so everyone kind of knows how that works. Let's see how much feedback we get from people before we start scheduling, I think, other
I
meetings.
agree with you.
And then
Yeah.
if there's a lot of demand from people to talk about this, zoning or whatever it might be, then yeah, definitely.
Great.
I'm all for it.
Okay, well, our next meeting is just a week from now. If you want to just, why don't I'll plan to make an announcement at the next meeting on a procedure
Great.
on this, and it just can be an announcement at the next meeting.
Okay, so I'll prepare some instructions, draft instructions for your review at the next meeting.
And then just one suggestion for that forum. I brought this up to Jenny. I think I brought it up to you, Hazel. I would like to discuss a student advisor position for the planning board.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Love it.
And just
Great
see
idea,
how we could do something like that. I think school committee does that, which makes sense. But just having, after the article about the 16, 17-year-olds
Right. Yeah.
wanting to vote, clearly there's an interest to get engaged. And so having a student advisor or representative that could ask questions, could participate in the process, and then not have a vote, because they're not on the planning board, but still at least inform the process, I think would be helpful. So I would like to discuss that at some point in the future.
Cool.
All right, let's see, planning board member office hours. John has been nice enough on Friday mornings to be holding his,
I don't know that you're close enough to the mic, Hazel.
well, John holding his work, or working at the library so he can answer any questions. Would you be willing to continue to do this?
Yeah, it's not every Friday, but
Oh, it's
yes.
not,
No,
okay.
yeah, I've got other stuff I need
I
to do,
was
but
gonna say.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And if we want to get to a more regular schedule, Jenny and I can work out a regular
Yeah.
repeating schedule.
maybe twice a month or once a month in the summer and
Yeah,
twice
we
in
can
the
figure something
regular
out.
months.
I was trying to do it more frequently leading up to town meeting.
Yeah, and that's a good idea,
but-
yeah.
Now if it's going to be regular.
Okay,
And anyone can join me.
right.
Well, one other person.
That's true, yeah, not three of us.
True, good
Not
point.
two, yeah.
And I think it would be helpful too, that when we go back to the farmer's market this summer, if we could have like a planning board for, one of the times.
I love
We
the
usually go
farmer's
3 to
market.
4.
It's great.
Great,
Yeah,
so you're
that was,
volunteering?
that was really, actually, I went to the senior center 2 weeks ago, and that was great. I mean, I think that kind of exposure to members of the planning board is super, and so if people kind of look at maybe at their summer calendar, are you gonna be there every week in the summer, Jenny?
No. I think last year we did 3 or 4 times, I want to say, maybe 4 times. And one time I know Kristen just attended without me. I wasn't able to make it. But we don't attend the whole time, and I think they were actually looking at changing their hours, but it's nonstop talking to people, and people are definitely interested. And
So we
a
certainly
great
could use
opportunity.
1 or 2 members, actually, probably.
I would say one other member, and
Yeah,
then either
okay.
Kristen or myself, and
That would be great.
just interactive activities. We also are doing we'll be doing the active transportation plan, so we'll be getting feedback for that, but I think it's helpful for people to just stop by and talk about what's going on in planning. So we can set out a schedule, and maybe, people can sign up for even an hour.
That would be
Stop
great.
by.
Good idea. All right, planning department updates?
So I wanted to mention, I just thought of it that, and I thought it was really cool news, thinking about the student advisor. We had an 8th grader come into the office to talk to us, and apparently there is a National Civic Bee competition. And so he is a finalist in the States, and
Cool.
the topic that he brought up was the East Main Street project with the shared use path. And so he came in and talked to Kristen and I, and we went through the plan, and then also talked about the different transportation projects we have going on in town, the storyboard. He had done a lot of research. We didn't need to even tell him much. I was very impressed. But I had no idea that there was a civics bee.
Cool.
And so he's now a state finalist. So Avish Sharma is his name. And so I thought that was really cool. So I'll
Awesome.
keep you guys up to date on what comes out of that. And then the other update, as you know, we will have the public information meeting next week on the Downtown Rotary Project. It's on Wednesday, April 15th, from 6 to 7:30 in the Great Hall, so this room. So there'll be a presentation on the preliminary design that we've come up with based on all the feedback and the work we've done over the past year or so, over a year. And then we'll answer any questions that are asked and hear any comments. And then the next step would be to come to the board, and the board can tell us, next steps. We can't do anything without additional funding, so this is the end of the grant funding for this preliminary design.
All right, reports of board members on town committees and CMRPC. I have a design review meeting next Tuesday. So that's coming up. Any other meetings? All's been quiet. All right, minutes, John.
We have minutes from March 17th. Everyone have a chance to look at them?
Yep.
Any edits or comments? Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? It's 5-0.
Downtown improvement public meeting, we just commented on, Jenny did. Now this is, Jenny, this is just going to be a presentation. We're not going to break out in groups or anything like that this time.
No, it's a presentation
Okay.
of the findings and the feedback and then the plan. And then we'll answer any questions and hear comments, and then we'll be done. So no breaking out into groups or anything.
Okay. All right, upcoming meeting dates, the 14th and the 5th of May. Any problems for anybody on those dates?
I won't be here on the 5th of May.
Okay.
But not because it's Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
I'll be in Costa Rica, actually.
All right, is there anything else anybody would like to bring before the board? If not, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you, Westborough TV.